ask you all today, what was the most important thing in your life, what would be your answer? Success, good grades, a certain person, your family, your religion, maybe something I didn't list. What if I told you that there was a man named Patch Adams that dedicated his entire life to try and show the world that happiness should be our number one priority? Laughter should be everyone's number one priority. You're probably sitting there going, oh God, another cliche speech about what I should do with my life, and you're probably right. But by the end of the speech, you're going to realize that maybe you should start focusing your life around humor, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, I'm a biomedical sciences major here. I'm a pre-med concentration with a psychology minor. I'm hoping to go to med school at UK, which means I want to be a pediatric psychiatrist. As much as this might sound like a bragging right, it's actually me proving to you that I also have chose to dedicate my entire life to try and better people with happiness, or to try and find ways to prove to people that happiness and joy will help you get through anything. And if you all listen and you take the path that I'm trying to take, you'll realize that every insecurity you have, every obstacle that you face, if you face it with happiness and you face it with confidence and humor, you will get through it easily. Now, you can see on the far right, that's actually Patch Adams, and down here, you might recognize his name, probably not, but there is a movie that Robin Williams portrays him in. To understand why he decided to do this, you need to know where he came from. His story actually begins where he tried to end it. Now, there was a series of unfortunate events that led him to a couple suicide attempts. First off, his father, which is a Vietnam and Korean War veteran, ended up dying of a heart attack. When he did this, they lost money and they ended up having to move away from their German home and into the suburbs of Virginia, which is a pretty big difference. When he went to Virginia, in high school he was bullied because he decided to date an African-American girl, and this was the 1960s, so he was called a lot of racial slurs for doing this. In the midst of all this bullying, but he did stay strong through it, his uncle and surrogate father committed suicide. And his family didn't really like talking about tragedy. They didn't want to talk about anything negative, so he had to bottle everything up. And reminder, he was our age. He was 18 or 19. I personally couldn't bottle this all up. I'd have to talk to someone. So when he got into his first semester of college, his girlfriend of 4 years broke up with him, which was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, he did, again, attempt suicide twice that I know of, one by swallowing 20 aspirins, another by walking around a bridge called Lover's Leap, which was in the middle of Virginia. He was a perfectionist, and the only reason he didn't jump off the bridge that day is because he thought his suicide note wasn't good enough, which, if you have a morbid sense of humor, I thought was kind of funny. He ended up getting off the bridge because his suicide note, again, wasn't good enough, and he realized that he wanted to not give up yet. He had some kind of purpose, he just didn't know what it was. So he trudged 6 miles through the snow to get to his mother's front door and told her, I've been trying to kill myself for 6 months, I can't control it, you need to admit me into an asylum. After some debating and his pleading, she did admit him, and so he was admitted at 18 years old. His roommate's name was Rudy, and Rudy kind of opened him up to a brand new perspective of all of these people that were, I'll just quote him actually, it became obvious through tears that these people were not crazy or insane. They merely responded to life's obstacles out of fear, anger, sadness, and despair. When he met Rudy and he realized how blessed he actually was, it made him realize that he wanted to empathize with more people. This was the first person he actually empathized with, he says. He went around the asylum and he tried to talk to more patients and hear more stories, and he realized that this was his passion. Finding people's stories, showing them that there's a different way, showing them that you're normal. There's not a switch in your head that's normal, abnormal, crazy, or not crazy. And when he talked to all these people, he decided that day that he would dive into a pool of gratitude and he would never have a bad day again. And he stuck to this. He decided to actually apply for medical school with no high school degree, and he got in. Don't know how. But he entered medical school at the College of Virginia in 1967. They did have him do a couple of asylum checks, but he was good, so he got in. Now that you know a little bit about where he came from, you can understand how he started to realize that he wanted to connect happiness and medicine, which was his entire life's purpose. When he got into medical school, he realized it was going to be a little bit tougher than he thought to make other people realize that joy was actually a good medicine. His medical professors disliked him a lot because he tended to push the boundaries a little bit more than he should, because a lot of people know doctors are supposed to be kind of more of a robot-like than human-like to be able to do more accurate diagnoses. Oh, there's actually a court case later on in the story where he was almost expelled from school for excessive happiness, was the legitimate reason he went. Although it might seem a little silly listening to it, you kind of understand when you see some of the things he did. And he liked to push the boundaries of transference, which is absolutely banned by all medical professionals. Transference is actually just emotional attachment to your patients. You're kind of sitting there probably going, why would you not want emotional attachment to your patients? That's kind of part of it. Well, emotional attachment to your patients, according to the doctors and the professors, would cloud your judgment, and therefore a misdiagnosis, malpractice, and probably death. Patch decided, and he wanted to push it, that patient and doctor relationships should be more mutualistic rather than focused around indifference. He also decided to pull a lot of pranks. On the guests that came in, which, again, the professors did not really appreciate when they were big professionals and they were trying to rank the school. He would also dress goofily and unprofessional with a red nose and a big tie to try and make his patients laugh. And he would sneak into different rooms to try and make the cancer patients of the pediatrics laugh. Some of my favorite stories of that is he dressed as a clown to perform shows. He was not allowed to do this, by the way. He'd snuck in as a guest. And he filled a swimming pool up with pasta to make an old lady happy so she would start eating again. And she did. If he ever got caught, he always had medical evidence to back up his madness, just ready to go. His quote is this: "Remember laughter. Laughter enhances the blood flow to the body's extremities and improves the cardiovascular function. Laughter releases endorphins and other natural mood-elevating and pain-killing chemicals. It improves the transfer of oxygen and nutrients to the internal organs. Laughter boosts the immune system to help fight off disease, cancer cells, and viral or bacterial infections." So why should you focus your life around happiness and humor like Patch did? Well, if the medical evidence wasn't enough for you, and just the fact of being fulfilled all the time and getting through your obstacles wasn't enough, then think about why would someone dedicate their talents, getting into med school without a degree, their life, towards something so simple as focusing happiness and medicine together. I hope that you follow the path I do, and tell me if you see a difference. Thank you.